Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another proRevenge Reddit video. In our first story, in our office, you don't mess with Sandra. This tale was told to me as a warning when I first started on my first post-college job. I am relating it exactly as it was told to me. This occurred in the early 80s, so those of you who've grown up with the internet may not understand how we did things in the olden days. There were no smartphone apps to show Q codes for airline tickets, they were paper, with red carbon mess. Reservations were done by phone. It was primitive by today's standards. The players' names of course have changed. Sandra, super sweet secretary loved by all. It's true, I worked with her, she was amazing. Fred was Sandra's boss, Tom was a local vice president, then we have Big Shot, an incoming manager from back east, and Al, the lead engineer on the team. This occurred in Salt Lake City, which if you don't know, family was a huge part of culture. Even at work, family matters took precedence, and local management knew this and allowed for it. Well, Big Shot's office minions in another corporate location noticed some slight irregularities in time cards, like days off without pre-approved vacation requests, so he got himself transferred to the Salt Lake City office to straighten things out. He was pushy, and naturally he was quickly hated. Big Shot ended up as a middle manager between Tom at the top and Fred. One morning, Sandra got a call from her daughter, who was unexpectedly in town and wanted to have lunch. Naturally, Fred and Tom gave her the okay. Big Shot didn't like that, although it wasn't explained why. Maybe it wasn't by the book, maybe he was upset that Sandra went over his head. In any event, he decided to stick his nose in. But rather than just say no, he dropped a last-minute urgent travel request on Sandra's desk, and it had to be done because he expected to fly out that afternoon. Sandra was heartbroken that she wouldn't get to see her daughter, but she had her work responsibilities. Stopping by to drop off some paperwork, Al noticed that Sandra looked a little down, a huge change from her normal chipper mood. He naturally asked why, and Sandra explained. Al told her he had no authority, by the way, to go have lunch and we'll take care of it. Big Shot got his travel packet, got on the plane that afternoon, and flew off to his meeting. That's when things started to go wrong. The rental car reservation was invalid, and there were no cars available at any of the agencies. All of them had a hold on them pending confirmation from some clients, so Big Shot ended up getting a rent-a-wreck. For those of you too young or not in the US, there really was a discount auto rental agency by that name. Quality was not job one. When Big Shot got to the hotel, he found that his reservation was no good. He had to wait around until after the tentative reservations expired, which was after 6 p.m. Getting suspicious, Big Shot looked at his tickets and found they were one way. He had no flight home. To say Big Shot was incensed was probably an understatement. The next morning, Tom flew in to join him, and he gave Big Shot a packet that was marked extremely urgent that had been left on his desk with a note to take it to Big Shot. It was Big Shot's return ticket. On the way back, Big Shot detoured by the corporate head office and got a very senior exec to come with him because of some very serious personnel problems. The next morning, Big Shot led the senior exec and Tom into a meeting with all of Fred's department and began publicly berating Sandra for incompetence and so on. When he got to the part about the tickets, Fred interrupted and told the senior exec that Sandra couldn't have done that. She was on approved time off having lunch with her daughter. This raised the senior exec's eyebrows and got Big Shot even angrier. The senior exec said if Sandra didn't mess up the tickets, who did? Fred stepped forward. Then Al, and one by one, every single member of Fred's team stepped forward to take responsibility to protect Sandra from Big Shot's wrath. Tom and the senior exec knew instantly what had happened. Everyone on Fred's team had burned up the phones making tentative reservations for rental cars and hotel rooms, leaving Big Shot stuck with a one-way ticket, worthless reservations, and no alternatives. Within the hour, Big Shot's desk was empty and his badge had been turned in. It was never explained if Big Shot was fired or if he just quickly relocated. The senior exec stuck around to get to know the team. He was very impressed with how the whole team stuck together and protected their own. After he finished telling me the tale, the engineer said bluntly, "Don't mess with Sandra. We love her and we will make you pay if you upset her." Message received loud and clear. As I worked with Fred's team, I got to understand why everybody loved Sandra. She was an absolute gem in the organization, efficient, super friendly, just an all-around wonderful person. In story number 2, a stalker boss ends up regretting it. I've just discovered this sub and I have the perfect story for it. It won't be a long one because it happened about 4 years ago and I'm fuzzy on the exact details, but it's still a belter. I used to work in a convenience store and the store manager was a real prick, misogynistic, offensive, as in haha, cancer is hilarious offensive, creepy, and a downright bully. Sometime after I left, he was fired after he decided to turn a professional interview with a young woman into a conversation about her favorite porn. She reported him and he got the sack. Awesome. Anyway, this guy, we'll call him Andy, fancied himself a real leader. I mean, he wasn't. He said impossible tasks and yelled instruction whilst doing absolutely nothing in the office in the meantime. I had a colleague called Gabby, who, to be honest, I didn't get on with. However, I knew at the time she was having a really tough time at home with her 3-month-old son. One day in the winter it had snowed, fairly heavily. Gabby rang in that morning and told Andy she couldn't make it in as she was snowed in. Everybody knew that wouldn't have been true and that it was likely she hadn't slept well with the baby crying and whatnot. But you know, who cares? She always worked hard and she deserved a break. It was only a 4-hour shift and the store was dead anyway. No customers were going to walk over snow and ice for the morning paper. Plus, we were actually overstaffed. However, Andy had a problem with women. He was always disrespectful and demeaning. Like the rest of us, he knew she wouldn't be snowed in, but he didn't let it lie. He wanted to catch her out. Andy abandoned the store, which was serious gross misconduct, and got in his car. He made the 15-minute drive all the way to Gab's house and took pictures of her car, her front driveway, and the rest of the street to prove she wasn't snowed in. He then called her into the office at the end of the week for a disciplinary. When she came out, she was in tears. She was on a final warning. Andy wouldn't want a dismissal on his quarterly record, so he basically just threatened her instead. This didn't sit well with anybody. We hated him anyway, but he went too far making a single mom cry over something so ridiculous. Well, here's the good part. What Andy didn't realize was that on the last work night out, he had drunkenly revealed to the team that he was a serial cheat. He would regularly cheat on his wife of 18 years. He also has 2 teenage sons. He would justify it as having natural male hunger, if you've ever heard a more disturbing quote. Andy used to tell his wife that on an evening he finished at 11 o'clock. This was a lie. He never worked later than 9. After an evening shift, he'd go and mess around with whichever side piece he had going at the time. Well, one evening he finished at 9 o'clock and he got in his car and started driving. What he didn't realize was that Gab, who wasn't on a shift that day, had dropped her son at her mom's house and had waited outside the store in her car for Andy to leave. She tailed his car all the way to his hookup house and parked 3 houses down. She then proceeded to take pictures of Andy hugging and kissing this random woman before pulling her inside and slamming the door. You can see where this is going. Andy didn't come into work for a week. When we saw him next, he looked broken. His wife had anonymously been sent the pictures of him getting off with another woman. She'd kicked him out and had contacted a lawyer to start the divorce process. His sons had blocked his number and wanted nothing to do with him. Of course, he knew who sent the pictures, but he had no proof, no evidence. Gabby stayed at the store for another 3 months before moving into a recruitment position for a pharmaceutical company. As far as I know, she's still there today and doing well. As for Andy, I have no idea whether the divorce went through or not. I blocked him on all social media after I left the company, about a month after this whole thing happened. What I do know is that he's a disgusting, reprehensible human being who thought he was invincible. He thought he could walk all over people, bullying and belittling as he went. Well, he soon realized that nobody is invincible, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching his collapse. The end. This is John from /Bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, subscribe and click on that notifications bell. We would love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.